Welcome, everybody. I am Jan Barlow, and I am your host for the HR Disruptor Summit Fall 2021 Speaker Series. Thank you all for joining us this Thursday. And my featured guest today is Crystal Yates of EBR HR Experts. So, hello, Crystal. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Hi, Jan. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Crystal and we met through Dallas HR and a couple of years ago, and we have been collaborating and tag teaming ever since. And I'm just so excited to collaborate with her again because this whole topic, especially when we had our June HR Disruptor Summit, we're continuing on with the vital topic of transforming the HR trust factor. So we wanted to make sure that this information really gets out to every HR and hiring manager, in a company that's in this transition or this really creating the next employee, C-suite, HR collaboration. Because, man, I don't know about you, Crystal, but the trust factor really needs to be encouraged, and a lot of things need to be learned. So if you would share with everybody your background and a little bit about yourself, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. So I have been in HR most of my career, and most of that has been in very small businesses. So I kind of held a much larger role than the average HR person. And I hesitate to say I've seen it all because then I'm going to see something I don't want to.
It's going to pop into your bubble. Be careful, my friend.
That's right. But I have seen a lot. I love playing the generalist. And for the last 6.5 years, I've been consulting with other small businesses who don't have an HR presence on site and helping them navigate primarily the employee trust piece. So I think this is a very timely and very important topic.
That's so true. And I think what you and I shared, it doesn't matter what stage of your career you're in, whether it's new hiring manager or new HR in the profession, right out of school, or if you've been in, 5 to 10 years, or you're in mid-career, because really refreshing this information, you can't hear it enough. True?
That's it. So true. Yes.
I just want to make sure that make sure that people can hear us. So if you're at your computer, just please let us know where you're listening from, what part of the country. We'd love to know that you can hear us. All right. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, Crystal, take it away.
All right. Well, so we're going to really focus on what we can do as professionals ourselves to gain that trust. I know one of the most frustrating things for me about our industry is how so many employees consider us the enemy. And unfortunately, we have created that sometimes with the way we fail to communicate, the way we fail to allow our employees to understand what our role is.
And that whole perception, right? That whole
perception is exactly right. And what that has created is fear of our department, fear of our industry. And that's what we want to overcome. So I'd like to make this more of a conversation than listening to me. And so let's start by talking about what is the price of fear? Why do we care? Why don't we want our employees to be scared of us? And I would love some feedback from others. I'm going to start.
Free to just jump on in, and if anybody has any experience with the fear culture and going through this presentation and this dialogue and engagement, please feel free to just comment, and we will be sharing that with the group.
And I'm going to start while you guys are typing. I'm going to start with the most obvious problem with fear, and that is bad hires. Right? If we don't communicate well, then we end up with the wrong employees, and that breeds a whole list of other issues. So what other prices do we pay when we have fear within our organizations?
Well, I have here some Lisa is saying about bad job fit. And like we said, what's interesting and what we always say at Better Job Fit is, employees just want to get a job, right? They don't really know what it takes to do the job. Only the employer, the hiring manager, only the company itself knows what it takes to do the job, right?
That's
So
right.
when a company just goes and hires somebody and really doesn't have a good process or objective process to hire the right person, they're putting people in harm's way. And just like if you get into a car accident, right? When you get back into the car, you're a little skittish.
Uh-huh.
It's just like once you've been, you get hired and then it turns out to be a bad fit and you leave that company, you're a little skittish about the next opportunity to be hired, right? You want to really keep yourself out of harm's way. True?
And you're not going to give as much as you might have before.
So true, because you're going to hold back and you're going to be leery. You're not going to really engage with people. You're going to really be more defensive than offensive, when you start a new position. So gosh,
That's
that
exactly
that in
right.
and of itself is costly.
And let's take it from a business perspective. As a small business owner, every penny counts. And I'm going to tell you, when I hire the wrong person, it costs me in productivity, it costs me in time, in training, and especially as a small business owner, it costs me in my brand. This bad employee is not reflecting the brand image, and they're harming my future opportunities. And this is something I talk about a lot with my small business owners. The right fit means everything, right?
It's all the way around, the
Get the
employee
right
feeling,
fit,
right?
we have to present the right image. So I really think that's what it all comes down to. We can dig deeper into what that means, but really it's about making sure that we're hiring the right person and that they feel good in the fit. So, all right, we're going to talk about that. So how do we create the change? How do we gain buy-in from employees and from leadership to make the change happen? And how do we empower others to embrace and drive that change? Jan, am I missing anything? This is
No,
really,
I think those three things right there, because to create change, you got to have buy-in and you have to empower others. And what we said in the beginning, you have to, it's not only accountability, but it's also providing authority. You can't truly empower others unless you give them the authority to really make that happen, right? To create the change.
that's
So
right.
until you have both authority and accountability together, that's what it takes to empower others to create the change.
Well, Jan, thank you for queuing up my favorite quote: create the change you want to see.
I love
This
it.
is perhaps an oversimplification, but this is it. And I talk to HR folks all the time who go, I would love to drive change in my organization, but I don't have any authority. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to tell you, it's real easy to deflect that. Jan and I were having a conversation before we got started about responsibility and owning and changing what you have control over instead of waiting for your circumstances to change. And I think it's really important. You might not have full authority, you might not have full control, but there are things that you can do personally and internally. And those things include better communication, continuing education, and making sure that you are creating diversity within your organization. And I'm not talking about physical, visual diversity.
External, nope.
No, Jan, we have all been inundated. We all know what that looks like, and we all know what we're supposed to do. And I'm not discounting that. That's very, very important.
Right.
But today I want to talk about that internal diversity. So I apologize. I have to keep swapping screens. So communication.
Here we go.
There, you see the communication. Communication in my experience, is the absolute most important thing that we have control over. Are you going to create trust so other people communicate with you? Are you going to communicate openly, actively, honestly with those around you? So my question to the group is, what are you doing right now to build the quality of your relationships within your organization?
Okay, feel free to just jump on in, post a comment.
And how do you, as an addition to this question, how do you create change if your organization isn't supporting what you know needs to happen?
Lisa says intention. And self-intention, I mean, it starts with the person, yourself. That's exactly right. I mean, it's interesting when, Crystal, when you and I talk about the communication piece, you can go ahead and say, well, I've done, I sent them emails, I called or whatever. But really, when you ask the person, what was your mindset, or what's your true intention when you're trying to create a trust relationship with an employee or with the C-suite, it's a self-check. It's like, if you come from that mindset or that emotional state of either victim or it's somebody else's fault, that's really going to impede your communication. True?
That's exactly right. And it's creating good communication is built upon solid relationships, right? And we don't have
Absolutely.
to be best friends with everybody we work with, but we absolutely have to create trust and and respect. And
Yes.
that starts foundationally. Hey, Jan, how you doing today? You okay?
That's exactly right. How about just saying hello to people, ask them how they're doing, acknowledge people. I mean, this is real basic stuff. But unfortunately, people don't do enough of it, right?
We
We're
tend
just so
to
used to one-dimensional emails, get it done, whatever. And we're just really missing the boat that we're still human beings and what we need.
That's exactly right. And on top of that, we tend to be relatively good as a whole about communicating with those people in our direct sphere. But what about taking it a step further? Something that I see as I work with larger organizations, again, I'm used to working with itty bitties that are very, very flat. But as I get into larger organizations, something that has become very, very obvious to me is the siloed effect.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And what that means is IT is over here communicating with IT, and finance is over here communicating with nobody but finance, and operations is over here doing their thing, and sales over here doing something else, and nobody's communicating. Sales isn't going back to operations and saying, hey, I need this to be more successful. Operations isn't saying, hey, sales, you're doing this and it's creating problems back here. We're moaning, we're complaining, we're pushing it up the ladder, but nobody's looking for solutions and providing key information throughout throughout the organization. And why are we doing those things?
Well, and it's funny because as I've shared with other people, when I worked for a global pharmaceutical company, right? And I was in between sales and the R&D, clinical affairs, right? And just working to get an FDA approval for our second generation laser. Well, what they talk about is a red folder, and that has to go to all these departments. You have to check off the box, you have to communicate, you have to get reports, etc. Well, it was so interesting when you talk about those silos. All of them, sales had a silo within the one building that had housed R&D and clinical affairs and tech support and all that. Even within 125 people in one building had their own little silos within that each of their departments. That company, because they had those silos and didn't really understand behavior diversity, right, or how to communicate with one another, communicate key, They end up losing a $1 billion division. I mean, people don't, when we talk about that ROI or the money piece of that, that doesn't even include the 5 years of money that was spent after they purchased that laser, right? And how many people lost their jobs? Now let's talk about that ripple effect, right?
That's right.
Again, communication, you'd sit there and go, lack of communication in those silos created a domino effect that affected thousands of people's lives. I mean, this is a big flipping deal.
It absolutely is. And it doesn't matter how big it is or how small it is or what the dollar amount associated. It's that ripple effect that's going to make the biggest difference. And
I love here, Janice just says, seems like what we are also saying is we start with communications. That's exactly it, which is in our control. That is it, Janice.
100%.
That means it starts with each of us and our attitudes and mindset. This impacts everything we do. Thank you so much, Janice, for that comment. That is awesome.
I couldn't have said that better myself. That's exactly right. And the reason we often don't communicate is because we're scared of conflict. We're afraid of the responsibility that we're going to have to take. If I own this and bring this to somebody's attention, is it going to add more workload? What's it going to do? Am I going to hurt somebody's feelings? Am I going to make somebody above my head angry? Am I going to offend somebody? But we've got to push back against that. And especially as HR professionals, man, that's our job. It's not our job to make everybody happy. It's our job to take care of everybody. And think about it like with our kids, right? No, I'm sorry, you can't have ice cream before dinner. I know I sound mean, but I'm really taking care of you. I need you to have good nutrition and good eating habits. Right?
You know what? And exactly, just to add to that, Crystal, we have a great comment here. As a leader, we really need to find the right change maker whom you want to give the authority and accountability to, right? Communication
Yes.
is not just physical communication, it includes emotional support. That's exactly right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that information. It's so true. It's the right person, right?
That's
the
right.
Messenger.
That's exactly right. That is so true. and that communication, it breeds communication for other people, right? We take on, it's culture. We take on what we see around us. And so maybe you can't change policies. Maybe you can't change what's going on, but you can certainly create better lines of communication within your organization.
That's it.
And so another thing I like to talk about is education. Education changes everything.
Knowledge.
Yes. Right? So how do you get exposed to new ideas?
That is so true. And you know, it's interesting, especially HR professionals, we get caught up in, going to the same conferences all the time and say, oh, well, I'm just going to go to this conference once a year, get all my credits, and I'm good. Like, that's all I got to do. I think the richness comes from the different resources and the different voices that feeds information to you. Would you not agree?
100%. And it's those different opinions and those different mindsets. It's not about checking off our CEUs.
No, you gotta start feeding yourself with information that allows you to grow.
It's about engaging in this conversation right here. Exactly. It's about asking your fellow professionals, what do you do? How do you overcome that? This is why I'm asking you, the audience, what you're doing, as opposed to telling you what you should be doing. Because while I work in this space every day, so do you. And you've probably encountered, I'm going to shift gears. Before I jumped on here, I'm part of a committee. We work with job seekers, and we're trying to expand our audience reach a little bit to people who aren't quite ready to start searching. And I had about 3 ideas of how we could alter our existing topics. I got on with my committee, and we had a page full of ideas. Everybody fed off of each other. Well, what about this? Well, hey, we can take this and do this with it. Hey, we can. And before we knew it, we've made a much bigger shift than I thought we were going to be able to.
Well, that whole connectional intelligence, and that's what a lot of people don't realize, that true creativity of that really affects change is that connectional intelligence and that opportunity to come together and start opening up those ideas, right? And free thinking. And
That's
that
right.
only happens when you're around different people, right? And you're focused on that's the goal, is to brainstorm and create new ideas. I got to tell you, that was the one thing when you and I originally spoke about creating the HR Disruptor Summit. It was about being different and bringing different ideas and bringing different people together to create those different ideas. So
That's
I
right.
so appreciate that.
If you aren't creating psychological disruptors, then you're not changing, right? I've been doing this for
That's
years.
it.
It works. I'm happy. You've got to have somebody shaking it up, and it's usually going to come from an outside source. It's not going to come from you.
That's it.
So have those conversations. So, we love SHRM as a source. We love HRCI. We love HR.com. But where else can we go? What else should we be looking at? And the answer
HR
to that,
Disruptor Summit, our live stream.
there we go. That's where we're
Crystal
at.
Yates.
And the answer to that is really limitless. There's any number. I'm going to provide you guys a list of some of my favorite resources at the end.
I love it. We got Janice. One thing, that is very helpful is to connect with diverse mindsets from my own. That's right. New functions, different industries, devil's advocate. So
Yes.
true, Janice. And, I think that's the biggest thing when we think of traditional HR conferences or meetings. They don't always have enough people from the outside. That was one of the 4 or 5 things that when we created the summit, we wanted to make sure that we got business people. We wanted to make sure that we got people in the HR space that were in like the 1 to 5 HR departments, right? The smaller businesses. It's great to know what Toyota or State Farm does or a global organization, but really, how does that help me when I'm trying to expand and build my division of 1 or 2 HR people in a small company? Like, how do I apply that? That was one of the biggest things I think, Crystal, you and I shared and
Absolutely.
said we wanted to help bring to the table is for the new HR professionals, early career or mid-career, that are really want to leave a mark on their company or their department. Like, what can I do? Give me some tools and resources that I can take back and implement right away, right?
That's right. And we had a conversation about that. One of my biggest frustrations, I love going to conference every year, but one of my biggest frustrations is I have to have business acumen for my certifications. And I go and I sit in and I hear what AT&T is doing. And while that's all very interesting, I have 5 employees. The companies I work with have on average between 5 and about 20. So what AT&T is doing does not help me. I'm told to go get a seat at the table. Jan, I laughingly tell you all the time, I own the table.
Yeah, I own the table. That is so true. I don't have to get a seat. Okay. I'm stuck here. Okay.
Right. How do I get my employees to give me feedback? How do I get my businesses to give me the right information so I can give them the right feedback? That's the challenge that the smaller HR departments. And, generally speaking, we don't start seeing a need for full-time HR until you're at least 50 employees, sometimes 100, depending on the industry. And
that's just not, I got to tell you, I have a client that, their business is like 20 some years old, right? It's a family business, but he just now reached 65 employees, right? So he's always had somebody that did HR duties, but now it's a position to where he's building his business to the next level. So you're exactly right. How do we help those businesses that with a 1 or 2 person HR department and move them to an official hey, you now officially have an HR department, right? I mean, we're gonna hang the sign out on the door that says we're HR.
That's right. It's no longer the operations.
That,
Yes.
right.
Or the finance. I see a lot of CFO.
That's right. That's right. Bookkeeper versus finance, right?
That's right.
Accountant, right? When
And
we're
many of
creating
them,
the
yes.
job match survey, right, for
Yes.
bookkeeper versus accounting, right? I'm like going, it's a fine line, but there is a difference. Okay.
And some of them enjoy it, and some of them step up and are willing to learn. But again, okay, now that I'm taking over this, how do I expand it? And how do I work for the betterment of my organization?
That's right.
You know, how do I drive culture change? And you know, there's some very basic thoughts that come to mind. And you know, first one is remove groupthink. You know, it's something that I do internally. When I have a big problem that I need to bring to my team, I have everybody work on it separately and then come together. That way, Crystal doesn't say something and everybody goes, "What a great idea, Crystal."
Yeah,
you know?
that makes sense. I mean, that just, you know, you got everybody doing their idea of it, or it's coming. That's just a very good process. So people feel included, they feel empowered, but now they feel included. True.
And everybody gets the opportunity to present without comment, without judgment. And then we decide together. When you hire resources from outside.
I love that.
Yes. It's so true. So true.
Thank you.
So another thought that goes along with this. So we're removing the groupthink process, eliminating accusation. Okay. Everybody in the organization owns everything. Okay. I can't push this off on Jan. Hey, Jan, we had technical issues today. You were in charge of live stream. No, everybody owns it. Everybody comes up with solutions. Everybody thinks together.
I love that because, you know, I'm all about lose the shame and blame, because especially when you got the diversity slide up here, when we talk about all this external diversity, right? And we've got a lot of unconscious bias training. Well, it's been shown for it's been coming out the statistics that it's not working. This training is not working, right? And it's because the training comes across literally as shame and blame. So it doesn't matter if that's the intent, it's perceived as shame and blame. And physically, people's ears, our hearing shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
If our brain perceives something that we have a what do you call it, a defensive mechanism. Once we feel that, once it clicks in our brain and we feel defensive, our hearing shuts down. So when Crystal and I were talking about, you know, diversity piece, this is not just about external. This is really about internal behavior diversity, the difference in personalities, the difference in skill set. But it's, again, the big picture is lose the shame and blame. It's not working, people, right? It's not working.
Right. And so why do we keep, you know, what's the definition of insanity, right?
Keep on doing it over and over again.
We keep trying. And bottom line, perception is everything.
It's your reality. Your perception is your reality. I mean, it's such a simple statement, but if you really start to understand what that means, if you're a 2 on assertiveness and you go into a sale, you know, a store, and the salesperson is an 8 on assertiveness, you're going to feel that resistance gap and feel that they're pushing, right? Or at work, you're going to feel, if that's your boss, you're going to feel, well, I feel a little bullied. Well, it's perception. And that right there is huge, right? Janice, what are you saying is no matter what our position or job is, we need to think like an owner of the company. Yes, ma'am, Janice. I'm going to show that, because that right there, you own it, right? Meaning you're owning the situation and and the goal is to find a solution, right, Crystal?
That's it. And I love that you just said that, because we tend to overcomplicate. right? And it really is that simple. That's it.
I know we're going over, gang, but this is great content and we're getting some great engagement. So bear with us, okay?
So it comes down to culture, and we all have control over the culture in our organizations. We can either let culture control us, or we can control it.
Well, and that's the people, right? People make the culture, and
That's right.
what we just said, we control, or we control our attitudes, our mindsets, our belief systems, right?
That's right. Lead through influence and example. And I'm gonna jump through a little bit quicker because I see that we're so
that.
gaining buy-in. That tends to be a big challenge, right? Okay, so I see the solution. I know what we need to do. How do we successfully gain buy-in from
Especially
both?
with the C-suite, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they still think HR doesn't make money. I'm like,
Right.
come on now.
So how do we do that? How do we gain buy-in from the C-suite? How do we gain buy-in from the general population, from our general employees? And I'd love for people to jump in, but I'm going to kind of go quickly, and I'm going to, the biggest.
Please go ahead and type in how you gain buy-in or how you think what works in your organization. We welcome your comments.
So as we've been talking about from the beginning, never underestimate the power of influence, right? You can either let it happen to you, or you can create the change. You can, but hire effectively, making sure you're hiring for the right soft skills. And that's not my favorite term.
What do we say? Essential skills.
There you go.
We're going to cut the government from 1950s and 60s for creating that stupid word soft skills when it's an essential skill. Okay.
If we have created the right relationships with the leaders of the various departments, then we can get specific about what their real needs are, not what their job descriptions are, but what their real needs are. We set clear expectations. We maintain processes. We measure our systems. We create a feedback channel. What else? What else, folks? There's
what about
things.
That feedback channel, Crystal? Can you just share a little bit what works in your organization and what you've shared with other organizations?
Absolutely. It's about building trust first, but then it's about putting things in place like
a system, right? A feedback system.
A feedback system. It's appointing somebody to play devil's advocate in every staff meeting, and it gets to be a different person. But I want you to pick this apart today. Any ideas thrown out there, I want you to tell me why they won't work. And it can't be the same person, and it can't be done negatively. But if one person knows that it's their job and everybody else's job is to support and defend, it creates dialogue.
And I'm clear what you said. You know, there's I can't remember, I think the last name of the author is Ruiz, but there's it's called the 4 agreements. Well, the first agreement is don't take offense, right? So again, this is all about finding solutions.
That's right.
And you have to check yourself. I know myself, because being defensive is a knee-jerk reaction that just pops up from you, right?
That's right.
So, and you really have to be self-aware when somebody is giving feedback. You really have to check that, because that literally, remember the defensiveness, when you feel defensive, your hearing is going to shut down physically. So I love that everybody takes a turn, Crystal, because now it's just not John being negative,
Right? Yes. And so I had a very recent example, and I don't want to go into the details of it because it was a fairly personal issue within my organization, but I found myself getting very defensive having a conversation with one of my employees. And I took that conversation to my accountability partner outside the organization, and I was talking it through, and I very quickly shifted, and I went, oh, this isn't about them overstepping. This is about me not doing a good job communicating this particular piece. And I was able to sit down from there and revisit it. And I'm still working through the issue, and that's okay. Yeah. But by allowing myself to talk it through, and by by looking at it from a different angle, now I'm able to take care of it. Now, maybe she did overstep. I don't know. But how did that benefit me? How did that benefit the organization? It didn't. But if I take it and revisit the arena and go, okay, let me look at it from this angle instead, it allows me to create communication, create some dialogue that wasn't already there.
There you go. But it had to start with you, though. You had to shift your mindset, right? And to step back and kind of let it sit with you before you could really work through it and see how you could use that information or that experience in a useful way, right?
And that's exactly what I wanted you to hear. That's right. I shifted the way I saw it. And what I hope that does, what it has done to date, is it creates a culture of trust, because people know they can come to me with anything.
And that right there is priceless. You know, we should have a Capital One card commercial for that. It's priceless.
Right.
We have, if I could share, Janice, you know, again, she was supporting about buying in, find out what their motivation and speak their language, right? I mean, it comes back to, there's a love language for business, for the office, right? So
That's right.
I get it. And if it's C-suite, it's probably making money or saving money, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
If it's marketing, their motivation is growing, sales and marketing and customers. Janice, exactly, getting into that person's role. Believe it or not, that's really an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming communication technique. So kudos to you. And also, Priya, if you have 30% employees sailing in neutral bracket and they are 20% in lower bracket, they're influenced with this 20%. Let's see. I think that we're talking about, as far as the percentage of people buying in. So, you know, the majority, that is very true. Very true.
So respond, don't react when people bring things to you. So I think we've gotten the idea throughout this.
Yep.
That the whole point, the point of this entire is communication and trust. And if you guys walk away with nothing but the communication and the trust, you're going to be able to start submitting change or creating change within your organization today. These are some of my favorite resources. I'm an avid reader. I am also an avid Audible listener in the car when I don't have time to read. And these three are really, really great. If you don't already have them in your HR toolkit, consider getting these. They're going to help you with some of what we've talked about today. Think Again. I just read that one by Adam Grant. I just added this to the list earlier this week. I just finished the book. Guys, nice. Anybody that's read Adam Grant, you know how great his ideas are. But this one really gives you some solid feedback on how to reposition your thinking.
Again, you get to control your thoughts. Okay, remember, that's the take home on this, right? You can think however you want, but that is the accountability on us as individuals. And I wanted to share here, our LinkedIn user, create an environment that everyone feels that they are important in the process and they should feel appreciated. Yes. It's a continuous process, again, evolving, absolutely. And it takes time, and to keep that communication open, set expectations ahead so no one feels left out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Any last comments and thoughts? You know, when you said communication, you know, buy-in and that empowerment piece of accountability and authority, is there anything else you can think of, Crystal, that parting words of wisdom, my friend?
I think we covered it. I would just like to repeat what I said a few slides ago, and that is, like, you can only control yourself, but you absolutely can control yourself. So create that change yourself. It's not going to happen overnight, but you will slowly start influencing everyone around you.
I love it. My friend, thank you so much again. It's always such a pleasure to co-create and collaborate with you, and looking forward to us creating our next presentation for the next summit coming up in 2022. So again, Crystal, please put up your contact information. Do you have your slide there?
I sure don't.
Okay, no, that's all right. So give it to me. It's what do you want me to share?
My website is ebrhrexperts.com,
ebrexperts.com.
where you can go to the contact page and reach out directly to me.
Contact page. Thank you, Crystal, my friend. I just think the world of you. You know, you're one of my favorite peeps and core peeps at that.
That
So
is
everybody,
mutual.
please, thank you so much. Keep following us every week. We have our HR Disruptor Summit Fall 2021 8-week speaker series, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And the replay will be up shortly. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.
Bye, Jan. Thank you.
Mwah. Bye, my friend.